What's up, y'all? This is Evan with Backwoods Adventure Mods. It's install day. We've got our newest product to date. It's our 5th gen 4Runner 2010 to current rear swing out bumper. And just like all our other Hi-Lite products, it's a blend of steel and aluminum. So the bumper and the mounting hardware and the swing arms is steel where you need the strength. And then the swing out panels, the accessory doors, are aluminum, and that's for weight. Also, the added benefit that it's easy to drill if you want to add other accessories. Today we're going to be installing our tire carrier and our new prototype dual jerry can holder. Today we're going to be installing this on Moe's 2020 4Runner. Right over here we have a 2011, the early 5th gen, with the same bumper as well for comparison for you guys with the early 5th gen. When you open the box, this is what you'll get. The bumper itself with the mounting brackets welded in, it's all one piece, mounting shims, hardware. And then for the swing out, you've got the swing out specific hardware, the swing arms with the bearings and seals already pressed in, and the swing out panels. We're going to be installing the jerry can holder, which is an add-on item, as is the tire carrier. It's also sold separately. Just a note, parking sensors are not compatible with this bumper, with the swing out bumper. If you have the parking sensors, you can just take them out and turn it off on your dash. The bumper's pre-cut for the Pathfinder scene lights for backup lights or work lights, and we've already installed those. Let's put it on. All right, just like most of our bumpers, it's easiest to pre-assemble it, and in this case it's pretty much mandatory that you pre-assemble it before you put it on, just because it's going to be incredibly hard to get your hands to the inside of this bumper once it's on. So as I noted, we've got the lights installed. We've got this glide pad for the plunger, for the stopper, that's going to go on, and then we're also going to bolt the swing arms in and tighten them down so that when we put the bumper on, it's already done. You use the 1/4 inch black bolts to install this pad. Takes a 5/32 hex and a 7/16 wrench. That has to make it in the final cut.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave those just finger tight for now. We'll need to be able to adjust it once we get the swing arm on. So this monster grade 8 3/4 inch bolt is the pivot point for the swing arms. And we have the spacer that needs to go underneath the bearing on the swing arm. So we're going to slide the whole assembly in there and then drop the bolt through it. You definitely want to use Loctite on these threads. I like to get the nut started. We'll pan around to the back side. I like to get the nut started and then put a little Loctite on it. My bottle's almost there. It went. You're going to need to get this pretty tight. I don't have a torque spec because what we're doing is really setting the preload on the bearings. If it free spins, you need to make it a little tighter. It should have some resistance. Then we'll install this spring pin. With the pin centered in the hole, now I'm going to tighten up the first 2 bolts we put in. All right, time to cut. Now, if you're wondering why this bumper looks a little incomplete, Moe previously had a different aftermarket bumper on here. We took it off and we bought a new plastic piece just so we could do the proper cut and show you guys in the video. So you'll have some splash shields and some other junk, I assume, to take out of here. So anything that's kind of hanging down in here, go ahead and unbolt that. But we're gonna cut a line along here, so anything above this area can stay. So I'm just gonna basically give you guys a few measurements and a few points to measure down from, and we'll put the marks on here and then we'll stretch a piece of tape around it to get it straight. So the first point is right here where this fender flare meets the top of the bumper. So we're gonna come straight down 3.5 inches. Over here, before it starts to curve at the end of the straight portion, you're gonna come down 3 3/4. We're gonna measure straight down from this point right here. It's okay to let the tape measure kind of curve around it. Just do your best and get it close. 9 3/4. Then we're going to measure from here and here down both about 7 7/8. The rest of this, we don't need any measurements. We're just going to follow some existing body lines. So when you bring your tape around in a minute, we're going to curve around level until we get to this, the tangent edge of this rolled point here. So just to highlight, we're going to come straight down along this and then connect to the top of that curve there, all the way across. We're just going to connect it. Okay, we've got our measurements here. Now, more important than sticking to the actual measurements is going to be that you have a nice fluid continuous line. I was going to say straight line, but I doubt it's really straight. So I'm just going to kind of do a best fit here. We'll probably peel it up and redo it a couple times. All right, we've got a best fit line through here. I think it's safest to cut a little long. I'd rather have to cut twice than have too big of a gap. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut about an 1/8 inch too long. A 1/4 inch wouldn't hurt. Like I said, it's better to do it twice. Also, I've got these arrows here so I don't accidentally cut the wrong side of the tape. The best tool for the job, in my opinion, is the oscillating cutter. You could use a cutoff wheel, but it's pretty messy, a little more dangerous. This is a lot more forgiving, I find, and easier to keep a straight line. Here we go. Okay, we just finished the cut. We're about to test fit the bumper and see if we need to cut it again. But first, these are in the way and they have to go. I think it's the spare tire brace. Anyway, you don't need them and we're going to cut them off flush. You can choose to hammer them down if you've got a big enough hammer, but I think it's easiest just to cut them off. Okay, time to test fit. There's a little bracket here that holds this sensor. It's going to be in the way. You don't have to remove it, you just bend it down a little bit. You're going to want a helper for this part. It also helps to have a jack or some kind of cart like this, but it's not necessary. Once we pick the bumper up, it's actually going to rest on top of here so it won't fall, but we're going to use the cart just to help us get it fine-tuned. All right, ready? Okay, these little spacers are going to help take up the gap between the two layers of the frame rail. It becomes self-evident which way these spacers go, but they slide between the frame bracket and the frame. So it'll go just like this, or maybe like this. We'll see when we get under there. You can see that these 3 holes are more inboard than these 2 holes, so we're going to put the bracket up like this. What we want to do now is start all the bolts before we tighten any of them down. So we'll start with these. 3, 4, 5, 6. Before you put the bolts in, the threads in the frame are notorious for getting kind of galled up or rusted. I highly recommend that you grab a tap and chase the threads. If your bumper's never been off before, it's probably going to be fine, but if you've run these bolts in and out more than once, you probably need to chase the threads. So the big bolts are a metric 12 by 1.25, and the smaller bolts are an 8 by 1.25. It only takes a second. It's worth running to the store and buying a tap if you don't have one. So we've already done that on this rig, so we'll put a couple of these in to start the process of aligning the bumper. At this point, it helps to have a helper standing on the outside and lifting up. Since we don't have a lot of space right now, I'm just going to kind of use my knee here.
Thanks, Mo. Appreciate you leaving the
Yeah.
dirt behind, bro.
Real big of you, son.
Thanks, Trey.
We went to put the last bolts in and noticed that I'd skipped a couple on chasing the threads, and we just did them. That shows you why you want to chase the threads. The bolts going into the bottom of the frame right now are just finger tight. We're going to go ahead and run these 4 in, and then these last 2, and then we'll start tightening them down. We just got all the bolts in. The test fit looks good where the cut is on the plastic. We'll probably go back through and trim it just a little bit, but we don't need to take the bumper back off to do that. So now we're going to start by tightening down these bottom 2 and these, and then finally the ones that hold it up on the bottom of the frame rail. all the bolts tightened down, it closed up the gap quite a bit. I guess I'm glad I cut about 1/8 inch too low. It's not perfectly consistent of a gap, and it's not enough of a gap. So I want to end up with about a 1/4 inch gap. So I'm going to tape it again, and this time I'm going to use the top of the bumper as the guide. After we do this cut, then we're going to want to cover that cut with the edge trim, and that'll give it a really clean finished look. Okay, that was our final cut. We've got about a 1/4 inch gap here. Now it's time to put on the edge trim. We're going to take this screw out if you haven't already, and then we'll pop this back so it's a little easier to get this trim on. I'm going to cut a little bit of the inside of this corner out because I want to go ahead and wrap this all the way around. So I'm going to cut a little fish mouth out of the inside to make it follow this corner.
You don't have those two pieces. It's pretty close. It's definitely a little wider than.
At this point, the bumper is on and adjusted, all the trim work's done, so it's time to assemble the swing arms. This is the passenger side. In operation, it closes first. It's got the receiver for the driver's side. So this side is what actually rests on the bumper when it closes. So this little glide right there, we'll use this countersink 1/4 inch 20. And then this one's gonna go right there. On the driver's side, we have the latch, and you'll use the supplied hardware to bolt this on like that. I said that backwards the first time. The little ramp goes towards the truck. The latch comes unassembled, so after you get it bolted on, we'll loosely put it together. You want to put the jam nuts on first. Just get them way down out of the way. This is a stainless piece, and this hardware is stainless as well. So make sure you don't use an impact on this. You really increase the chances of these threads galling together if you do that. See this little machined part? The flat side needs to go against the lock nut. So we'll put it in like this. Oh. And this you can discard. We don't need it because the hook is welded onto the bumper. It's time to hang this passenger side accessory panel. You're going to use the included grade 8 7/16 fine thread bolts and nuts. These are all loose, just kind of finger tight. We're going to go ahead and close this. That'll set the height. And then I like to look under here and see that this height is about the same here as it is here. And then we'll tighten this side down. I use a socket on both sides just to make it easy. The nut is an 11/16. The bolt is a 5/8. I'm not going to tighten them all down because there's a chance we'll need to adjust it again in a minute, either left or right or up and down. Now we'll hang the other side. So we got these adjusted and tightened down. We actually didn't have to adjust it much, it just happened to land right in the middle. But what you're looking for is that it's about the same gap on the inside as the outside, and that when these two close together, you have about anywhere between 1/4 to a 1/2 inch gap, so you have maximum engagement here. We're going to tighten down this latch so that it's about centered in line with the hook. It's a little forgiving, but about centered in the slots is what we have here. Now with the latch in the closed position, We're going to tighten these down until the latch is tight. Okay, we've tightened these down so that when it shuts, you've got a pretty substantial push against it, and you can see it sucking the doors in the last little bit. Then to keep it from moving, tighten these jam nuts down against the back. And that's it for the bumper install. Double check, make sure everything's tightened up, zip tie any wires, and that's it. I appreciate you guys watching. Stick around, stay tuned if you want to watch us install the tire carrier and jerry can holder. It's a new day here at the Backwoods shop, and now we're going to install our accessories. On this rig, we're going to put on the optional tire carrier and our new prototype jerry can holder. We'll start with the tire carrier. You'll get the hardware for the install as well as the wheel studs. They come loose and you'll need to press them in. If you have a shop press, that's probably the easiest and simplest way to do it. We don't have that luxury right here, and we're going to use a hammer to seat these in. You'll want something solid underneath this, like a block of wood or an anvil, anything like that that's really solid, and you just drive it in with a hammer until it's fully seated. Okay, just a few sharp blows should seat this, a few light taps to get it started and make sure it's straight, and you can kind of feel and hear the difference when it's seated completely. Right there. Check to make sure that it looks like it's driven in straight, and repeat on the other three. Looks good. Before we put this on the bumper, I like to check and see how far in and out this should be adjusted. So you can see we have different slots and levels of adjustment here depending on how much back spacing or offset you have. This particular wheel is an SCS -38 offset. So I'm just going to put this in there and sight down the back side of the tire, and on this setup all the way in is going to be best. If possible, I'd like the rubber of the tire to be touching the swing gate just for a little bit of positive engagement. This one looks like it's still going to be sitting away from it, maybe a 1/4 inch or so, but that's with it all the way in. Quick note, this is right side up. Don't run it like this. It wouldn't hurt, it would work just fine, but you'd probably collect mud and dust and rocks and junk. And we're going to be using these 4 holes. They'll line up with these 4 holes on the bracket. I'm going to start by putting the inner piece on this plate. When I tighten this down, I'm going to bring this all the way up because he's running a 35 on this. Next step, we'll put this on, and like we figured out a minute ago, we're going to put it all the way back. All right, we've got this adjusted and tightened down. Now all we have left to do is put the wheel and tire on. You may notice we're only going to have 3 lug nuts today. We're going to have to send Mo out to source a 4th one for his rig. We'll include lug nuts with this kit, but he wanted to use his matching lug nuts so he could use the same lug key for everything. Tires on and tightened down. Now we're going to go ahead and install our jerry can holder. I'm just going to put it on off camera. This is going to have its whole own video, and it'll likely go through a couple changes since this is the prototype. So we'll go ahead and put this on now. Jerry can holder is installed. Everything's tightened down and adjusted. License plate is on. Now we don't have it in the shop, but we do offer a solar LED license plate light, so you don't have to run wires. It clips onto the license plate. And speaking of running wires, this isn't something we offer, but I thought it was cool. Mo did this himself. That's the Anytime camera. And he's got his wires routed along the bottom of his swing arm. And that's a wrap. That completes the install of the Swingout bumper assembly for the 5th Gen 4Runner, as well as the optional accessories. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch, and if you have any questions, please reach out to us at backwoodsadventuremods.com. Mo's gonna think this is a permanent marker. He's just gonna think that we messed up with his line.
Sorry, man. Sorry, dog. Where's the shirt? Yeah, put the Sharpie next to it, please. Dude, I love it. Isn't this clean? Dude, love it. Love it, man.
You love all of it?
I'm fine. All of it? 100%. What's not to love?
I have to admit I made a mistake. We need to probably get some acetone. This is supposed to be a cut line, but I measured too high. So we probably need some acetone to probably...
Dang it! You found it. We put a decoy right here.
Decoy Sharpie on the floor. I wasn't sweating today. Oh, man, he got it, man. He probably ain't got it. I ain't never gonna
Oh
sweat.
my God.
It's like literally not a big deal.
He's like, he's looking.
Bumpers, doesn't even care.
He's looking right at it. It's sweet,
Yeah,
man.
It's sweet. It's sweet. I'm like, dude, look at that thing. I saw the line. I was like, dude, it's just good. I wasn't.
It fits all the 20 to 10. Here we go. Take one of 15 now. Drill new holes in the swing out panel really easily. That's how I'll assemble it. Don't show that one to Mo. Not a one take day, is it?